of Zone Coverage. I'm Cody Schoeler here, as always, with my co-host Ryan Root, ready to talk about some Week 8 NFL action. But before we get into that, we have a little breaking news, kind of emergency news segment we've got to do at the start here because a lot of stuff has gone down this morning. Most notably, I don't actually know what is most notably. Because there's kind of two big things, but I guess we'll lead it off with the more. Do you want the good news or the bad news first? I'll let you pick.
We'll go with the good news first.
Okay, the good news. I don't know. I guess it's good news for some, bad news for others. But in terms of positive storyline, is Von Miller getting traded to the Rams for 2022 picks. Good for the Rams. Bolstering that pass rush with a former, I don't know if he won Defensive Player of the Year. I know, I feel like he has.
He was a multi-time All-Pro.
And he's got the Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
Led, a lot of sacks. He's a great defender. Add him on that defense, and then it's obviously sad for the Broncos and for Von Miller, who I know seeing things was emotional. But it kind of shows the Broncos are kind of punting on their season a bit. But, I mean, what do you think this does? I mean, in the NFC West, which the balance of power can be shifted, with any little move such as that. Not that that's a little move.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the NFC West where pretty much every team, except for probably the Seahawks, has a pretty formidable, pass rush for the 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Rams. Now you put an all-pro outside linebacker who just absolutely terrorizes all quarterbacks that he gets near. You pair him up with Aaron Donald as well as Jalen Ramsey still in that secondary. I mean, this is up there for probably one of the most star-studded defenses in the league, I'll say. But, I did want to double-check Von Miller's stats thus far this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at them.
Yeah, 7 games played. 10 solo tackles, 9 assist tackles, but 4.5 sacks across 7 games.
9 QB hits, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, he's down a bit last year, or didn't play last year. 2 years ago, only 8 sacks. But, I mean, he's still a great pass rusher, and now you've got him with Aaron Donald, which, I mean, guys like Leonard Floyd and, those types are exceeding with him. And so – just what Von Miller can do with that type of help, which he's never had a player like that, which is obvious because there hasn't really been a player like Aaron Donald.
I mean, I'm just curious to see how much of a part he plays in the defense because, we kind of had at least a similar reaction when Richard Sherman joined Tampa Bay, but I think we can agree, Richard Sherman joining Tampa Bay isn't quite like this situation.
And he's been injured too, but yeah.
Right. If Von Miller plays and isn't just one of those weird, like veteran kind of switch out, switch in kind of guys, if Von Miller plays on this Rams team that is still just one loss on the year to the Cardinals, I mean, their offense is obviously firing on all cylinders. They're completely fine. And the defense just got a little bit better. So if anything, this probably solidified, the Rams to be probably an NFC Championship guarantee at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to the J.J. Watt trade with Arizona. Like, he's not necessarily – doesn't need to come in and have 20 sacks to be impactful. Like, just having him on the field is, something else. Like, you have to block J.J. Watt regardless of what the production level is. So it's kind of similar to that. I think he'll have more production. But, I mean, just putting a guy like Von Miller on the field with – Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey just gives you one more option you have to worry about. The only knock against the Rams really all year was that their defense has lost a lot of pieces, which is true because you can't keep a lot of upcoming free agents when you're paying Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So, it was, they've lost some pieces. They've got those 2 guys, but behind them, what do they have? And they're kind of answering that by saying, well, behind them, we've got, Von Miller. We've got some good, linebackers. We've got some, other pretty good corners, and they've got a lot of pieces there. And so I think that's just, going to be helpful. And like you said, competing in that division, I mean, that the difference between them getting, winning the division and getting that wild card spot is going to be huge. That's an extra away game if not more. So they really have to compete. Whereas teams like Tampa Bay and Dallas, aren't going to coast because they want that first round bye, but they're going to have the division pretty easily. Rams have to really fight for the division, so they need to be aggressive with trades like that. But I want to move. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with them going out and getting Jalen Ramsey a few years ago, just dumping draft picks to Jacksonville, it's just kind of following the trend with Los Angeles, just, spending their draft capital just to get players. I mean, they really try to like swing for the fences when it comes to playoff time. Like they know they're not going to keep Ndamukong Suh long term or John Johnson long term.
Yeah.
But if they're going to get Von Miller for a year or two and give them a couple of late round picks for next year's draft, I mean, I like what the front office for the Rams are doing in terms of just, trades have always been very weird in the NFL where you can just give a 5th round pick and get Stephon Gilmore, right? So trades have always been very strange. 2nd round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? You'd think those would be kind of flip-flopped, but I like what the Rams are doing in terms of just having that second half of the season push to try to get a playoff
for sure.
berth. Yeah.
And now to hit on the bad news, we'll group 2 into 1, but Jameis Winston, torn ACL, out for the year, and then Derrick Henry with a foot or ankle injury, I can't remember for sure, but he's expected to be out 6 to 10 weeks, so there's a potential that he comes back for the end of the season, maybe into the playoffs, but those are 2 huge hits to teams that were in playoff spots. Not sure what the Saints are planning on doing because Taysom Hill has been out, I believe, with an injury. That's why Trevor Siemian came in that game yesterday. So maybe Taysom Hill comes back soon, or they have a contingency plan. They've obviously drafted Ian Book, and then the Titans have announced that they have signed Adrian Peterson to a contract to go along with Jeremy McNichols, and I believe they have Mekhi Sargent there. So 2, unfortunate losses for teams, coming off of pretty big wins.
I can see it being exciting for Tennessee to have, AP join the running back tandem there. Imagine if you had Adrian Peterson back up Derrick Henry for a year. That'd be they get so many people to watch those games. But in terms of the Saints, I mean, I've said it multiple times where I haven't been high on the Saints really at all. But now they're losing the quarterback that everybody says has found his rhythm again, right? With New Orleans, and now without him, and you can't have Taysom Hill play at quarterback. I don't know if Taysom
Hill will be back, but that's just why Trevor Siemian was the guy yesterday. But yeah, it's
even if
not
Taysom
great.
Hill comes back, he is such a gadget guy for this New Orleans offense that I believe Taysom Hill has a negative touchdown to interceptions ratio across his career. I could be wrong.
I think he's 4 to 3. I think we talked about this. It's not close. But I think he could do what Jameis Winston is doing this year. They're not having Winston throw the ball a bunch. Because they're trying to limit what he's doing. I mean, he's winning games throwing 180 yards. So I think they could do that, and it gives an option in the running game. But it's certainly not what they wanted, and that's going to be interesting to see what they do if they go with Taysom Hill or if they use a competent backup, because they like kind of keeping Taysom Hill in that gadget role.
And keeping Taysom Hill in that gadget role is fine, but now that they have this issue at quarterback, and you have Michael Thomas coming back, a very ball demanding receiver. I mean, he has the record for most receptions in a season, so. You have Michael Thomas coming back after a year and a half long hiatus of him, just being back and forth with football. So now he's going to want the ball. Are you going to be able to get the ball to him and also get the ball to Kamara, but also have Taysom Hill play the gadget role? And, again, New Orleans' offense is still very disjointed to me in this native.
And this does not help at all. I was already trying to figure stuff out. And then the Derrick Henry news just sucks, I think, in terms of just a league-wide perspective. He's one of the most... He would
have been a 2,000-yard rusher easily. And
yeah, I've talked about it. He was on pace to for a few games at least. I think his stats from this last game, not doing too well, kind of take him down, but he was on pace to break that record. He
On pace
was
to break Adrian Peterson's attempt at the record too, which is funny.
exactly. And on pace to get 20-something touchdowns. So it's runaway offensive player of the year. So it sucks, from a fan perspective. It also sucks for the Titans because that was their identity. I mean, as much as the Tannehill to AJ Brown is starting to look a lot better, but they're still a Derrick Henry led team, and evidenced by the fact that when they're down against teams, they lean on Derrick Henry even more. They did against the Seahawks. That's what they do. So that's going to suck for them. And then I know they just beat the Colts in an overtime game, close matchup, but it does open the door possibly for the Colts, who were surging as of late. If the Titans do struggle, without their best player, it's certainly, the division, I think, had gotten more open with the Colts playing well, but it's a little bit more open. I mean, anytime a team loses its best player, it really, messes with its chances to do anything.
If I were Tennessee moving forward for the rest of the year, obviously you don't have Derrick Henry. You're a very run-heavy team. So everybody would think, all right, now work through A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Tannehill's got a lot of responsibility to take on. I would just keep on keeping on. I mean, Adrian Peterson is not the greatest running back in the league anymore by far, but Adrian Peterson and all the other running backs behind him, I mean, they're probably very new players in the league, but I wouldn't change my identity if I'm Tennessee, because I still see them as an AFC South favorite. I think the Colts could approach them, but they're still going to be like 2 wins behind, 3 wins behind.
I mean, the 2 head-to-head, wins Tennessee has is really helping.
I think even without Derrick Henry, Tennessee would take on Indianapolis easily. But Tennessee remaining with their identity for the rest of the year, and then when Derrick Henry possibly comes back for that first round of the playoffs or the divisional round or wherever, then you're just still in rhythm, and you just got an improvement at running back, basically. Get used to Adrian Peterson, get used to your running back tandem, and then have the best running back in the league come and replace, and then just move on from there.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing is, they're still going to do their team identity, but, there's no running back that can, run through 8-man boxes like Derrick Henry. It just sucks, because that's part of what. So if they are still going to run the ball, they're going to be able to load the box. But this puts a lot of pressure on Tannehill to be the guy that we've seen in previous years that was, not great, but really solid and was, capable of leading a playoff team. He hasn't been the best this year, so a lot of pressure is going to be back on him. But we can move now into our takeaways from Week 8. I want to start with one that would have been a lot more fun without the Derrick Henry injury, because I just want to do a little check-in on a history in the making. Because, like I said, Derrick Henry certainly would have been a part of this, on pace to rush for over 2,000 yards, on pace to break the record, rushing record, on pace to have an incredible season. But now we're not going to be able to see that because he will miss, a handful of weeks. But some guys that are obviously Tom Brady. Right now, he has 2,650 yards and 25 touchdowns. That puts him on pace for 5,300 yards and 50 touchdowns in 16 games. I'm just doing 16-game paces because it's just really easy to double what they've done, because they've played 8 games.
Plus, if they're playing, I mean, even if they are playing 17 games,
that's true.
On the 18th week, they're probably not going to play, especially Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, they could be fighting for a 1 seed, possibly. That's the only reason I could see them. And then the record set by Peyton Manning in 2013 is 5,477 yards and 55 touchdowns. So he's, keeping up his current pace. He's on pace to break the yardage in terms of yards per game. I mean, he is on pace. He could certainly threaten that. Obviously, there's only been 3 50-touchdown players in the history of the league, Tom Brady being one of them. So that's just something to watch, and he's doing it at 44. Who knows what'll happen, but yeah, in those late games. Another one, Cooper Kupp, 924 yards, 10 touchdowns. That is a 16-game pace of 1,848 and 20. The record, Calvin Johnson has the receiving yards record with 1,964. and Randy Moss has the touchdown record with 23. 23. 20, okay. Yeah, 27, I think, is the rushing one that we looked up.
Oh, that's LT. Okay.
Yeah. But so, I mean, Cooper Kupp, I mean, is very close to doing both of those. I mean, because I think that Calvin Johnson year, he did not have a lot of touchdowns. So that's just pretty crazy. I mean, he's, on his current pace, he's that last game, I mean, 100 yards and, a few touchdowns, which is wild. And then two guys on the defensive side. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs, we've talked about, 7 interceptions in 7 games, except he broke his streak of games with an interception, couldn't get 7 straight. So I feel like that's, a little bit of a, failure on his part. But obviously, he's technically on pace for 17 interceptions. I don't think that is going to happen, but the record is 14. He's halfway there, and he's got over half the season left to play. So whether he breaks the record or not, he'll certainly, is looking to put his, name close to the top of those record books. And then Myles Garrett, 10.5 sacks, which would be 21 in a 16-game pace. Record 22.5. It's been threatened quite a bit, has not been broken. And he is, on pace to get very close. So that is another thing to look out for. So there's just some, halfway through the season, obviously the first year with the 17 games, we're going to see a lot of records, especially the counting records like touchdowns, yards and stuff, get broken eventually. But, there are some candidates for this year at least.
And I also want to throw out there, we have a new record for the longest field goal in NFL
history. That's true. That's already been broken.
Special teams are getting their fair share of records as well, thanks to Justin Tucker.
Yeah, true. So, I mean, that's just wild.
I mean, I wanted to check the sacks as well right before you were talking about it because I was like, oh, Myles Garrett's been playing well. And Chandler Jones, after week 1, he was on track for however many sacks, right? And he slowed down quite a bit. So, I mean, the fact that Myles Garrett is on track for 20, though, and
21.
Michael Strahan has the record.
Yeah, 22.5.
So,
let me see. I mean, yeah, Harold Landry and TJ Watt both have 8.5. That puts them on pace for about, and TJ Watt missed a game or two, puts them at about for 17. Obviously, it just takes one big game. Myles Garrett got the 4.5. Chandler Jones had the 5. But so those guys are threatening, but Myles Garrett is the leader by a full 2 sacks right now.
And Chandler Jones still is in the top 20 in sacks, even though all 5 of those sacks were in week 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's just numerous categories that are on pace to be broken that I can only imagine within 5 years from now, at least one of these categories will be broken, whether it's receiving, passing, rushing, interceptions, sacks. I'm sure someone's going to kick a 70-yard field goal at some point, right? It's possible, but it's never been done in a game. It's incredible to see just how many players can, approach these records. And on top of it, how the hell Brady can approach these records at 44. I know people hate Brady. I'm not a huge fan myself. But at 44, if he
can't deny it at this point.
If he gets 50 passing touchdowns this year, if he finishes the year with 50 touchdowns and leads the league in passing yards and touchdowns like he's doing right now, then he has to be like one of the greatest athletes of all time. We're already past football. I mean, we're reaching like.
I mean, he's close to there. He's close there. I mean, I think it'll certainly be one of the most just impressive athletic achievements of anybody.
We're talking like Wayne Gretzky
for a year. Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. Yeah, and I mean he's doing this now. Like he could have one of the best quarterback seasons of all time at 44. Like 44. Like when will he stop? I don't know, and it's scary.
And I know he's got great receivers. I know he's the best receiving core in the league. I get it. He also had Randy Moss to throw to when he broke the passing record. He also had Gronk for the majority of his career. He had Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola, if you want to count them. And he had, he's had help before. Yeah. You can't achieve great.
You need it.
A lot to receiver. Joe Montana is regarded as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He had to throw it to the greatest receiver of all time.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys, a lot of quarterbacks have a lot of really good talent around them and still don't do what Brady's doing. But I mean, to get numbers like that, you have to have talent. You can't do that with with what the Patriots have right now, obviously. But we can move on to your takeaway. Just wanted to do a little history update, and I'll keep my eye on that for sure.
So my number one takeaway, and I know you want to talk about this as well, but we have to talk about Thursday night because
we can group these in together.
I'm watching the late game comeback attempt from Arizona. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is, first of all, I have James Conner, Zach Ertz, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kyler Murray all on one of my fantasy teams. So throw the ball anywhere, Kyler, or do something yourself. I will get points regardless. And then AJ Green, out of all people, that I have on none of my teams, thankfully, decides to do what he did during the game. And it was absolutely, obviously it's frustrating for me as a fantasy football player, but I can only imagine how frustrated this coaching staff was at AJ Green. This is a former Pro Bowl receiver. I don't think he's ever been all pro, but this is a former Pro Bowl receiver multiple times, in fact. I mean, he was probably the only bright spot for Cincinnati for a couple of years. Comes to Arizona, he understands his role, and then he does this in a late game comeback attempt. For those who don't know what he did, the ball was thrown in his direction for a fade route, I'm assuming, and I think he thought the ball went elsewhere, so he wasn't paying attention to where the ball was, and he kind of just stopped playing. While the Green Bay corner, it was not Jair Alexander, it was someone who got the first career
Razool Douglas.
Right, it was a rookie.
No, he's not a rookie. He's not a rookie. No, he's been around. He's just not. He's not great. Let me see. So
he gets a fumbling interception, if you will, because AJ Green doesn't know where the ball is, and that's how the game ends.
I just want to. So I looked up Razool Douglas to he has been around, but I just want to check. And the number one people also ask is Razool Douglas good? So that's where we're at with this guy. Now he's been around for a while. It's drafted in 2017.
Where did Kyler throw this ball? I believe this was within 15 yards of the end zone.
That's not his first career interception. That was his sixth. It was the first of the season, and it's first since 2018. So still a big deal. So
even worse for AJ Green. But my biggest takeaway is the Cardinals are still undefeated.
Well, they're not.
They are not 7-1. Okay, I know that they are 7-1, but they're just not.
I mean, if you want to play this,
Green lost that game. The Cardinals did not. The Packers did not win that game.
You want to play this woulda, coulda, shoulda game. I mean, is this game, looking at how this game played out, is this even close if Rodgers has any of his top three receivers? If we can play this so much. So that's why my takeaway is it's time to back the pack, which I have been doing. You have been resistant, not even saying they're a top 5 team. Now they go out and they beat the only lone undefeated team. They have now rattled off, 7 wins in a row since a struggle in week 1. And Aaron Rodgers did it without Devontae Adams, without who you said he throws all his passes to, which is correct. He does that. And he did it without Allen Lazard and without Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Tunyon left. I mean, throwing it to Randall Cobb, who I had on my fantasy team and had maybe one of the best 3 catches for 15 yards fantasy performances of all time, since 2 of those catches were touchdowns. And he was going for him on a third one on the goal line if it wasn't swatted down. I still have a lot of faith in the Cardinals. I still think they're really good. The shoe's got to drop at some point. And so this, takes a little pressure off of them now that they have lost and, they've gone through so much adversity leading up to that. They're still good, but the Packers are legit and they're up there. And, it's going to be, there's a lot of good teams in that NFC that are going to be jockeying for position.
So if I were to reorder my best teams in the league right now. I think before I probably had Packers at like 7 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
They probably would break the 5 mark at this point if I really broke it down and everything. Okay, because
So
Tampa Bay isn't necessarily the best team in the league anymore either. So things change all the time in the NFL, but I will give Aaron Rodgers credit for getting at least some scores on the board without turning the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
Like no Devontae Adams at all. Like I will give him credit, but I will not take the Packers extremely seriously until they make the Super Bowl. Because even if they make the NFC Championship, I don't care because I
was anticipating this, so I did a little research because you seem to like to knock the Packers for lack of playoff success. Is that correct?
Lack of NFC Championship wins, yes.
Because since 2010, they have the second most playoff wins. Since 2015, they have the third most playoff wins. So, I mean, this is not a team that
How many Super Bowls do they have? 1.
I mean, there's only one Super Bowl every year. Only 2 teams can make the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean that the other teams are bad. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, you get to that like last 4, get to the championship, and you've got as good of a chance as any. So, I mean, to say, I mean, they've got more playoff success than literally anybody but the Patriots and the Chiefs in the past, like, decade. And that's the Chiefs since 2015. So, I mean, yeah, they haven't been able to put it together. I mean, they had Mike McCarthy as a coach for a while when you've got, I think some better coaches in a lot of other places. Matt LaFleur, jury's still out on him. But, I mean, I still like the Rams better than anybody in the league, honestly. But, I think the Packers, I mean, they're certainly up there. And, I would put them in terms of resumes, I think they're at number 1 right now after beating Arizona. Tampa Bay takes a big hit with that New Orleans loss. The Packers are hot, but we'll see how it comes down at the end of the season for sure.
We will see, because I am not fully on the wagon, but I'm at least partially on it. So small takeaway, just because I know it'll irk you. The Panthers are not completely done, considering
they're done.
Defeated the Atlanta Falcons yesterday to finally win another game and bring their record to 4-4. They're just following in the footsteps of greatness. I tell you what, Sam Darnold, no scores at all. How many passing? 129 passing yards with a 54 completion percentage.
Disgusting.
Just absolutely remarkable from Sam Darnold. I think he showed a lot of heart. 66 rushing yards out there too. I mean, Lamar Jackson, who? Like, Sam Darnold went out and put up almost 200 yards of total, 200 total yards in his remarkable win over Atlanta. Didn't get any scores, but that's okay because he's a humble quarterback. And Matt Ryan threw 2 picks, so credit to the Carolina defense, and I got to give credit to this Carolina team. They fought real hard. They're not completely done. They're still scratching and clawing a bit.
The Carolina defense is good. That's all. That's
remarkable performance from Sam Darnold. Remarkable. Absolutely amazing.
He's got 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's
he had no turnovers though. He didn't score, but he didn't turn it over.
No,
amazing.
But he's done more interceptions than touchdowns this year. But the NFC behind the top 5 is wide open. I mean, New Orleans and Carolina are technically in playoff spots right now, so somebody's going to have to take those. That is the only reason why I still believe the Seahawks have a chance, because all they have to do is be better than Carolina at this point to make the playoffs, which who knows? I mean, 9 wins might get you a playoff spot. 8 wins might get you a playoff spot. So we're going to see what it comes down to. But yeah,
in all seriousness though, with Carolina and Atlanta, I think it just shows that the NFC South is an interesting division, because obviously Tampa Bay is the team, right? No one's going to argue with that.
Well, New Orleans
could be a wild card type team. New Orleans is not winning the division. It's just,
but I think they're almost guaranteed a wild card spot. Like,
and they're going to be one of the weirdest playoff teams in recent memory, because even with how weird their schemes are, I still think that they could probably win against a few teams in a playoff game.
Yeah.
It's absolutely strange.
I think it's Sean Payton. Sean Payton is,
Sure. It pretty much
why it's what's been so impressive about him with Jameis Winston is he's not letting Jameis Winston completely tank games by throwing, 8 pick sixes. And so he's a great coach that is using the pieces that he's given, which is, if they have to shift to Taysom Hill, it certainly will be weird and it'll lower their ceiling. But he's, the coach that I would have confidence in be able to, do that for a period of time. But yeah, I mean, playoff teams wildcard teams are going to have to come from somewhere. I think the Saints are almost guaranteed. And then, I mean, all it takes is one run from Minnesota, Seattle, San Francisco, Carolina. Like, I don't know. It's going to be weird.
I'm just saying with the Panthers and the Falcons, even though they're not playoff teams from here on, the NFC South is still interesting because those two teams are going to fight it out, even though it doesn't basically matter, though. But they're competitive.
They could take down.
It is a little underrated in terms of competitiveness.
Yeah. They could take down, one of the other teams that's fighting up there at the top. I want to go. We talked a bit. We've glossed over it, Trevor Siemian, but I just want to say that backups were balling this weekend.
Cooper Rush, baby.
Cooper Rush, who wasn't even the best of the day because Mike White threw for 400 yards, the second most passing yards in a debut ever, beating the Bengals, who were first in the AFC at the time. Then Cooper Rush winning on Sunday Night Football, throwing that game-winning touchdown. Obviously, Trevor Siemian coming in relief of Jameis Winston, and I don't want to say leading anything. He kind of just sustained, but still getting a win. And then Geno Smith getting his first win for the Seahawks, dismantling the Jaguars. Not him, but the team. So that's 4 backups right there that all stepped in. And I think, it's just kind of funny. Obviously, watching what Mike White did in the morning was just like, it was one of those, like, you kind of have to, like, did I fall asleep? And, like, is this, like, a dream? Not that I would be dreaming about Mike White, but, like, this isn't real, right? Like, I picked up the Cincinnati Bengals defense in one league, and they still did good because they got some turnovers, being like, oh, the Jets with Mike White fucking locked this down. Like, this is easy. And the Jets beat them, which is insane. So just want to give a shout out to all the backups out there that are, stepping up and doing good. Taylor Heineke didn't get the win, but he's still my guy. He started the season. I was going to include him if Washington won and be like, technically he was a backup, but they didn't. So he doesn't get a shout out here. I'm trying to quickly think for other backups, but I don't think there was.
Definitely the first two that come to mind, obviously, are Cooper Rush and Mike White. Shout out to Cooper Rush. I thought that was, obviously, I was telling this to my dad yesterday when we were watching the game. They kept cutting the camera to his family and being like, oh, here's Cooper Rush's family watching him do the game-winning drive, and here he goes and all this. Like, great job to Cooper Rush. It always seems like there's a handful of these games every year where there's just like this backup quarterback like story that just writes the entire game, and the Sunday Night Football broadcast will just be like, oh, here's Cooper Rush. He's from whatever town he went to this university. He's
always the Cowboys.
He goes, yeah.
You're talking about Ben DiNucci
and what was even Gardner Minshew kind of went through it, right?
Yeah, Gardner Minshew.
Football, where they're like, oh, here's this guy who switched all these different colleges and now he gets to play. And so that's kind of what I saw with the Cooper Rush game, especially on prime time, is just them being like, oh, here's this underdog kid. Here we go. Good for him. I think, this is going to be a career moment for him. Mike White, though, like, I don't know how long Zach Wilson's out for. Do you know?
It was 2 to 4 weeks. So
2 to 4 weeks.
And this was, I said, oh, they're starting Mike White after they traded for Joe Flacco. And you were like, what? Mike, like, who? They're not going with Joe Flacco? Well, because Mike White was balling. So,
this is fascinating to me because he's going to play another game. I think Dak's probably going to come back next week, I imagine.
Yeah, Dak was a game time decision. So which would, he went out and warmed up, and then they decided he couldn't go. So that would make you think that, yeah, he should be able to get back fairly soon for the next game.
So, I mean, Mike White gets to play another game at least. That being if Joe Flacco doesn't just light it up in practice this week.
No.
Put money on him not doing that.
No, Mike White is –
Mike White throws 400 yards with the Jets, though. When's the last time a Jets quarterback has thrown 400 yards?
The Jets play on Thursday, so Mike White gets his primetime game.
He gets his primetime game. The
against the Colts.
The broadcast team is going to absolutely hype him up to be like, oh, Mike White, he never played football until 20 minutes ago. He's just this amazing athlete. That's going to be the story of the game. But if Mike White does like another 400 game, which is the game at home away against
Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And I just want to the last 400-yard passer by the Jets was in 2000.
He just made history that he just crossed a mark that hasn't been crossed for 20 years. I mean,
it's the Jets, so let's be real.
Yeah, it's the Jets. I mean, they had Brett Favre at one point, didn't they? Or am I?
They had 1 year of washed up Brett Favre on the fucking Jets. This was a Chad Pennington, Mark Sanchez, 2 good years of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Mark Sanchez is he's Mr. Sanchez, man. Like 400 yards, first time in 20 years. If he does it again or even crosses 300, Robert Saleh, at least look at this dude, because Zach Wilson's out there playing Madden while this guy's out there playing football. Like, I think that's pretty impressive. I mean, he throws 2 interceptions. Yeah, 3 total touchdowns, 400 yards, pass. I mean, I'd at least keep an eye on him, is all I'm saying.
I mean, yeah.
I definitely wanted to talk about him until I saw that you had the backups.
He might get a nice backup deal out there. And I still say 240 times the quarterback's passed for 400 yards. So it's it's kind of
the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, so it's rare. It's not, 500 yards or anything, but it's not like I bet there's a few franchises that haven't had it in 10, whatever years. I bet the Bears have never even had one.
And and one last thing about Mike White, there's not a single receiver that has over 100 yards. So that means he's not getting it to the same people.
Well, Michael Carter had 95, I think.
95, but then 84, 71, 67. Those 4, I mean, a 67-yard game times that by 17, you're still looking at a 700, 800-yard season. Yep. That's a good, third receiver number. So, I mean, he spread the wealth around. I give him a lot of credit. I give him a ton of credit. But real quick, I'll just go through my last 2. I'm going to pair them together for my last 2 takeaways because they're kind of polar opposite, but they kind of just, they work at least a little bit. The Chargers, obviously, losing this weekend kind of shocked me because, I thought the Chargers could.
Not me. I called it.
I mean, I knew the Patriots were going to put up a fight, but losing to the Patriots, that's a different story. I mean, the Chargers are above 500 still, but again, the AFC West, you cannot slow down in the slightest because I have who's playing tonight who could possibly, be right there with the Chargers tied up.
I don't know if this is a hot take right now, but we gave, a lot of AFC West credit, but it's probably the AFC North is the best division. The AFC West,
we talked about that a little bit too, yeah.
I don't think it's as great as we thought because I agree. I was even going to say something where it's the Chargers are not the team we thought they were. When Justin Herbert had that incredible game against the Browns, they got that win. They were 4-0, 4-1, something like that. We were like, oh, this team is ready. They've taken the step. Justin Herbert, Brandon Staley, they're gone to the next level. And then they've kind of fallen since the Ravens just, had their way with them. And then, the Patriots, it was close at times, but, never really as much. And, the Patriots, left a lot of points out there. Obviously got the interceptions of Justin Herbert that put it away. But I agree. I mean, the Chargers went from, oh, this team is AFC, what they're going to win the AFC West. They've got this, but it's like at the end of the day, it's funny because I don't think the Chiefs, who have incredible holes and are a lot of issues, I don't think they're out of it, and I still think they probably end up winning the division because nobody is like perfect in this division.
I mean, the Chargers now 2 straight losses.
Yeah.
Against teams that, I mean, should they have beaten the Ravens? It should have been closer, I'll say.
Yeah. Oh, definitely should have been competitive. The Ravens, I think, are one of the best teams in the AFC, but if the Chargers want to be in that category, they got to play much better.
But New England, like, they have better personnel than New England.
Oh, yeah.
The coaching, obviously, is not even close, right? Belichick could coach all day over Staley. But personnel-wise, I mean, this should have been a win. They have, I mean, the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, even if you really want to look at it, the next 4 weeks could easily be wins with Philadelphia, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and Denver. Next 4 weeks go 4-0, and you'll be right back. But where you need to be.
They could lose. I mean, they could drop Minnesota, Pittsburgh, or like Denver. Like
there's a few sneaky teams in here, but if they win those 4 straight,
for sure. Like
the fourth one being a division opponent, you'll be back on track. But the Chargers just need to reassess is kind of my takeaway. But on the flip side, the Bills bounce back and get a win, kind of a scrappy win over the Dolphins. I thought it was going to be a little bit better, but still multiple touchdowns on the ground and through the air for Josh Allen, who's now apparently overtaken Kyler Murray as the MVP favorite currently.
Yeah, I'm not. I get it.
I'm not fully sold on it yet.
Tom Brady should be the favorite.
And Tom Brady should be a bigger favorite than Josh Allen. But Kyler Murray, I still think down the road is going to be
Stafford. Throw him up there. Yeah,
right. And Lamar Jackson didn't play this weekend, but obviously Lamar Jackson. There's numerous players.
I get it with Josh Allen, but he's not like. And I think maybe some of the luster's gone because last year was like this huge breakout year for him, and he's done that already. So we're just like, yeah, you're Josh Allen. Like we know that, but like the wins just haven't been like. Obviously, they've played a lot of teams that they've just handily beat, but just kind of weird. And this game was so weird. Like I was watching Red Zone, and they kept. They cut to this game and I'd be like, oh yeah, this game. Like, I feel like I watched none of that game. Like, it just was, I don't know what it was about it. It just seemed really weird. And they probably should have handled the Dolphins a bit easier.
But
is
at home too.
Yeah. It just like,
it should have been a party. That's what I said, right? It should have been a party over there.
I mean, they did that last time they played Miami. They just, manhandled them. So yeah, it was just really weird. Obviously the Bills are still, them and the Ravens are probably the two best teams in the AFC. But yeah, it's just kind of weird, but they're doing what they have to do as long as you keep beating the teams in front of you. They beat the Chiefs, which for them was their big win of, the season. They've probably been looking at that for a while. It's not their fault. The Chiefs aren't the team that, we all thought they were going to be. But yeah, I mean, you've just, go through the rest of the season. If they're 15-2 or whatever, Josh Allen will certainly be up there, but the numbers aren't, the same level, I think, is what we've become to expect from him.
But just last thought for the Bills, the next, I mean, 6 weeks, 5 weeks are all winnable. Jacksonville, Jets, Colts, Saints, Patriots. Those 5 games are all winnable. The Patriots game would probably be pretty competitive. It's an AFC East matchup.
The last 3 can challenge them because, the Colts might be.
But the Saints don't have – the Saints are going through quarterback issues now. So are they going to be the same team then? Who knows?
No. I mean –
in terms of the next 5, they're all
– No, the Bills should be favorites in each of those games and should win them.
But then they play Tampa Bay. So that's why I'm saying my takeaway right now –
that's the big test.
The Bills – are starting to build that momentum, and they need to go to Tampa Bay and play their ass off.
Yeah,
and
I mean, if they
stick to their game plan,
if they can end the season strong, that's what you got to do. We'll forget about all this early, so we'll forget about this.
Because that went over Tampa Bay. That went over Tampa Bay. Then they got Carolina, New England again, Atlanta, New York. They could be they could be 15-2 if they beat Tampa. They could
for sure.
They could win the rest of the season, but they have to beat Tampa. So I'm just saying this game, they've built a lot of momentum. Keep it up for the next 5 weeks.
And speaking of Tampa, my final takeaway has to do with them is that they are not flawless. It is the reason that I have pushback on putting
way to end that game. So brutal.
It's the reason I have pushback on putting them as the number one team, or which before this past week you certainly had there was a good case for that. But even my friend saying like, oh, I think Tampa's like the NFC favorite. Like, I think they have way too many holes to be the favorite because you're in a league with the Rams, who I don't really know if they have holes other than maybe some
like
weakness.
Or something.
The Cardinals, who are pretty complete. Obviously, they've got some issues, but they don't have, there's not like
I can't really think of a whole lot with
there's not a perfect game plan to beat them. And the Packers, who kind of the same thing, are incredibly solid all around. But the Tampa Bay, to have that, even Dallas, like, I mean, maybe it's like a pass rush, but Tampa Bay, to have this thing where it's like you can throw on them, like they aren't going to be able to really stop you throwing. Like, their secondary is really weak, and that's an issue in a conference that is as strong as it is. And I think, obviously, the Chiefs had, average defenses and were still really good. It's not going to stop them from being, a contender and still being one of the Super Bowl favorites. But I just think it's an issue that we went in, and I've said this before, Tampa Bay they brought back all their starters, everybody who played big. Like, how is this not the favorite? How do they not do exactly what they just did? How are they not better? And, the offense is better. Tom Brady's playing better. He's much more comfortable in this offense. But the defense is kind of, struggling. And so I think that, they could lose to the Bills. They just lost to the Saints. They have a very winnable schedule as well, playing in that division. But, I mean, I would take the Rams over them right now. It already happened once. I would take, maybe even the Packers over them right now, because I think there is a huge issue for that team.
I think the biggest thing with Tampa Bay being, so you're saying like, after they won the Super Bowl, people thought this team's back right where they left off.
I mean, they brought everybody back. There's no holes.
I mean, my kind of thought process on that is the way to be a dynasty or a franchise, or we'll go dynasty in this league, like your Patriots, your 90s Cowboys, your 80s Niners. You're not doing the same thing every single year. And you're finding new ways to be, dynamic and unique, so teams have to scratch their heads when they play you. So Kansas City, 3 straight AFC championship games. They go to the Super Bowl, they lose because they're doing the same thing. Throw 400 however many yards with Patrick Mahomes, push it downfield. Well, if you just defend the pass and then just put everything towards the run, I mean, they took care of Patrick Mahomes. This is the first game he ever played as a starter where they did not score a touchdown on offense. Okay. And now Kansas City is still trying to pick up their scraps along the way and figure out what team they are. But Tampa Bay, this is not the same Tampa Bay defense, like you said. This is not, the Tampa Bay defense that, 5 or 6 players could be Pro Bowlers on this defense.
And it was supposed to be. That's the thing. Like, they didn't lose anybody. They got injuries now, but that was the thing. It's like they brought everybody back.
I tie it to Baltimore because Baltimore, I was one of those people. Once Lamar Jackson won the MVP, I was like, okay, he had a great year. It was Michael Vick 2.0. Obviously, he'd win the MVP. I can only imagine how good this guy's going to be when people start to contain him. Because teams are going to figure out an answer for Lamar Jackson. He's not just going to run all over the place and do whatever he wants. Teams are going to figure out an answer. Yeah. That's what they did for all the other great quarterbacks before him. But not only are they not really containing him, but now Lamar Jackson is a formidable passer in this league. Yeah. Nobody would have said that he is a top 10 passer in this league when he won the MVP. But he's progressed and he's become just the ultimate workhorse for the Ravens offense. So they've changed. They've, evolved. And now they're one of the best teams in the AFC. So Tampa Bay, I still think is the top 5 team in this league just based off of Brady alone. But you have to be dynamic in this league to progress and get to this Super Bowl bubble again. And, Tampa Bay has to at least, twist around their identity to try to, find their way into the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, no, for sure. And obviously the secondary is probably where they need to figure something out. Who knows what that'll be? But now we can move on to a little segment. We're going to do our biggest surprises for the season. We're going to roll through these fairly quickly, but I'll just start with mine. And I think, you filled yours out before I did, and I'm surprised you didn't include this on there because I think it might be the biggest surprise of the entire season, and that is the Chiefs' mortality.
I was leaving it for you. I was trying to think outside the box a little bit.
I honestly read yours, and I was like, man, you had some of the ones I wanted to, and I was like, oh wait, I didn't even think of this. I think it's just so obvious that it didn't even cross my mind either. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the Chiefs, not that they, lost a game to Buffalo or, they played a really tough schedule with the Ravens. It's the fact that they have looked so suspect. Obviously, the interceptions from Patrick Mahomes, throwing the most that he's thrown in a season at this point is bad. A lot of those tipped. But I mean, the defense being the, worst or, one of the 2 or 3 worst in the league is just terrible. He's never had a great defense, but he's always had an average defense. And that was kind of the goal. That offense was so good that you can play average defense and get turnovers and be fine. But now the defense is atrocious, and it's showing for the Chiefs. Obviously, they could turn it around, and if they make the playoffs, they are as dangerous as anybody. But, I mean, this was – I forget exactly, but, I mean, they might have been behind the Bucs as the Super Bowl betting favorite. I know they had, like, minus something odds to win the division. They were, minus 270 to win the division in a pretty tough division. So, I mean, absolutely nobody was expecting this.
For sure. Yeah, that's probably one of, if not the biggest surprise of the year. I didn't necessarily rank mine, but I'll pair 2 of mine together because they're kind of polar opposite. Washington football team, their failures so far this season have.
Yeah, don't remind me. Don't remind me.
I thought the Dallas Cowboys would at least, compete with them and, may or may not win the division next to Washington. I thought it was going to be a Washington-Dallas race to the finish.
Yeah, but race to like 9 wins.
Washington just looks like they've taken like 2 steps back in every single category.
Yeah. Everybody on that defense that was good. Like, Chase Young, is like no sacks or not none, but for a while had none. Like, it's really weird. And yeah, I
would have thought Chase Young would be in the top 10 in sacks, top 5 in sacks.
If he was like
a few months ago.
He was like a top 5 to 10 like defensive player of the year guy. This was huge expectations for the guy.
And Taylor Heineke, I thought, would bring like a new flavor to the Washington football team. You were saying Washington was a real dark horse for a Super Bowl contending spot with Fitzpatrick at quarterback. Then they switch over to Heineke, and you're like, okay, this could develop into something else, and it just hasn't.
Yeah,
and it's very weird.
I feel bad because this was the first time in his career Fitzpatrick was brought in to be a starter, this was a dark horse for Super. But I thought, if that defense is as good as it could be with those pieces, then who knows what I am. But yeah, just not great. I want to loop in mine because it's kind of the almost a polar opposite of yours, but it's Dallas. What did I put? Dallas is just in general, but the defense is solid. That was the one thing holding them back is, obviously the Dallas offense was going to be great, but I thought the Dallas defense would be, essentially worse than the Washington offense. But that has been the exact opposite. Obviously, Trevon Diggs is, asserting himself as one of the best corners. Micah Parsons is just an incredible rookie, one of the best linebackers, probably already playing all over the place. Got an incredible pass rush rate, and they're just, doing what they need to do on that side of the ball to be solid enough. And the offense is, what we expected, if not more. Because, I didn't even realize this, but I have 2 Dallas-related takeaways because Ezekiel Elliott's resurgence, I think, is another surprise because, like we said, the passing offense we knew were going to be good, but Zeke had his worst season last year. The questions of did the Cowboys get burned on this huge running back contract? Is he washed? Is he done? And he's coming back and playing really, really well. I think he's 5th or 6th in rushing yards. He's got. I believe
they're like the 2nd or 3rd best rushing team in the league.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Throw in Tony Pollard. Absolutely. I mean, right now he has his second best yards per carry since his rookie year. So, obviously he's not, Derrick Henry. He's not, the best running back that there is out there. But, I was like, I'm not touching Zeke in fantasy. I think, he could be over the hill.
I unfortunately was the exact same way.
Yeah, but he's proved. So, I mean, I guess I had a lot to say about Dallas. I didn't even realize it, but they've been also incredibly surprising.
Like the defense, I thought was going to be same old Dallas defense, but
yeah,
I mean, I was thinking about putting Trayvon Diggs on mine, but I wouldn't consider it too much of a surprise, considering I think he had a ton of potential, anyways.
I mean, it's a surprise when anybody gets 7 picks in 7 games. Like,
right.
How much
if this was Jalen Ramsey, it'd still be it's still pretty impressive. Somewhat surprising. But this defense, they got some players on there. I mean, Michael Parsons, Van Der Esch, DeMarcus Lawrence still.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence. Randy Gregory, a bit of a reclamation, doing good other than his, back-to-back personal fouls yesterday. But, yeah, I mean,
even when the refs were throwing ticky-tacky flags.
It's all on Randy Gregory.
To put it together.
Yeah.
But for sure, the Dallas has been definitely a surprise, and I think they're probably the most slept-on team in the league right now. I don't think people give credit at all.
It's the so overrated they're underrated thing. They're so overrated by Cowboys fans and stuff that you go, oh, they're not good, but they actually are good. And so yeah, and it's not a surprise that they're winning the division. I mean, although that could certainly happen.
It's a surprise that there's no competition for the
division. And
it's
a surprise that you can mention them with the Bucks and the Rams and the Packers and the Cardinals, who are also a surprise, and it's not insane. I think that the fact that they're a legit Super Bowl contender, I think, is a surprise. But you can go on to yours.
Yeah. So. Another team that's had success. I mean, I'll keep this pretty brief because I've already talked about it quite a bit. But the Saints have no idea how they're 5-2 now, 6-2.
5-2. They've got one bye week. Yeah.
Right. The fact that they are right there neck and neck with Tampa Bay. I mean, actually, I guess now they're over Tampa Bay because they won.
No, they're a half game back. They're 5-2. Tampa Bay 6-2.
Okay.
So half game back, but. And Tampa Bay's bye is until late, but if they were tied, they would, have the tiebreaker.
So the Saints have obviously been very surprising, but I'll progress into my next one real quick because we've already talked about that one. Detroit, I would have thought they'd have a win at some point. I knew they weren't a great team going into the season, but Dan Campbell had a very good feeling about his head coach.
I mean, even the way they've
been amazing, but they can't win one.
I mean, even the way that they've been playing, it's like, oh, they're going to I've said it multiple times. Not only in the summer would you say, that'd be a surprise, but a few weeks ago, after that Ravens game, that'd be a surprise because it's like they're in so many of these games that they shouldn't even be in.
I hope that they still play as hard as they are and play their way to a number 1 overall pick. Play super hard and then win 2 games, 1 game. Just play all the way down to number 1 pick. Take Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon.
I mean, that's the thing.
And just then you have an edge rusher on this team. Edge rushers are super valuable nowadays, so that could be the missing thing. That's what it was for Cleveland with Myles Garrett, right? I mean,
no,
it could be the same thing.
It wasn't the thing because 2 years later they had the number 1 overall pick again, and drafted Baker Mayfield. I believe.
Are the Detroit Lions now the exact same type of roster that the Cleveland Browns had before Myles?
I don't know, man.
Because the Browns were a laughing stock.
Are the Lions not a laughing stock? How many players on
this team? They just they play real hard. But
name players on the defense. How many players on their defense can you name?
The corner, I can't remember his name. He's the 3rd overall pick. He's
the one who's been out for a year because he ruptured his Achilles and wasn't even playing good before that. Yeah, that's the thing. They are at that point.
The defense, I could agree with you, but Kenny Galladay, DeAndre Swift,
Kenny Galladay's not there.
Hawkinson, Jared Goff is not a great quarterback by any means. He's in the bottom half of the league, but he's at least been to a Super Bowl. Like, the offense could get a win. I mean, that's why I'm just saying it's a surprise. They can't get one or two wins. I still agree
it's a surprise. But, I mean, what a Detroit Lions thing to get the number 1 overall pick in a draft when the quarterbacks suck. You know, I mean, that would just be such
right. I'm not even saying like draft a quarterback because
I mean,
next year's class is bad, but Kayvon Thibodeau could change this team considerably.
I mean, they still will need a quarterback. Maybe they're the big Mike White free agent destination.
There you go.
But I mean, yeah, it's just it's a terrible year for them. I want to go to Mac Jones's competency, is what I will call it, because he's not lighting the world on fire. He's not even the offensive rookie of the year candidate because you got Jamar Chase and even Najee Harris that are a lot more flashy than he's being right now. But I mean, he is solid. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's 8th right now in passing yards. Not a lot of touchdowns, but he's doing what he has to do in that New England offense without a lot of weapons, to the point that, Trey Lance might be the better guy overall, but if San Francisco had Mac Jones right now, they probably have a few more wins. Like, I think he's at that level. He's going to be the best rookie quarterback this year when every other rookie quarterback is struggling. Trevor Lawrence put it together after a bad start, still looking bad. Zach Wilson obviously has had his moments. Justin Fields at times looks like, just not good at all. And Trey Lance hasn't got on the field a lot, but, obviously still has a lot to learn. So Mac Jones is coming in and being the best rookie quarterback for right now. Will he be the best, at the end of their careers? Probably not. But, I've said it before. If he has a Kirk Cousins-esque career where he's just a really competent quarterback all the time, and if you surround him with a good enough defense and good enough weapons, you can be a legitimate team. I think that's a huge win for him and the Patriots.
Speaking of Kirk Cousins, that's a good comparison with Mac Jones because, like you said, Mac Jones has basically nothing to work with on offense. The backfield has gone through numerous injuries and departures and whatnot with Sony Michel.
Damian Harris.
But using Kirk Cousins as an example, Kirk Cousins obviously has a ceiling. You can't trust on him fully in time.
He won't be that.
Necessarily win a playoff game with him. You could probably. I think Kirk Cousins, his ceiling is you can make the playoffs.
Well, I mean,
you won't win, but you can make the playoffs.
You put Kirk Cousins on the Rams or the Niners that made the Super Bowl, and
Well, I know because Jared Goff made a Super Bowl. I know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's at that point where it's like he's not the MVP. He's not gonna have 400-yard games that get you wins, but give him weapons, give him a running back, which they've done, give him a good defense, and build a team around him, and you can be really good. And I think that's where Mac Jones is.
But what I'm saying is, if Mac Jones had what Kirk Cousins has right now,
two
Pro Bowl receivers, one of them could very well be an All-Pro receiver someday in Justin Jefferson, one who has been an All-Pro in Adam Thielen.
For sure.
Dalvin Cook, top 5 running back. If you have 2 great receivers and a great running back on offense, I don't care who the tight end is. I know they have Jonnu Smith and what's his face.
What's wrong with Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne?
Because none of them can make the Pro Bowl ever. Like I know the Pro Bowl doesn't mean a whole lot nowadays, but it is a stat and an award.
No, yeah, I agree. But I mean, Mac Jones is.
If you give him that offense. It doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't matter what the defense is, as long as Belichick is still the coach. If you give him that offense, and the Patriots are very, very strange drafters, and they're very, very strange, free agency teams. But if Mac Jones had that offense and you had Belichick as the coach, that's at least
that's a playoff
round team.
Yeah, for sure. You can get your.
It's definitely been a surprise for sure.
You can get your last few in, and I'll end it with mine.
On a similar note with the quarterbacks, I'm mostly surprised about Joe Burrow's second-year resurgence. Like you said, with Zeke's resurgence, Joe Burrow has come out
coming off the injury.
Coming off the injury, a lot of people put doubts towards Jamar Chase. This is kind of like a Joe Burrow / Jamar Chase / Cincinnati, but I want to talk about just Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
because I think Joe Burrow had definitely a ceiling to him when he was drafted, right? Number 1 overall. It's like, yes, he is the number 1 overall pick. He is like the for sure safe bet to be at least good in this league. Cincinnati needs a quarterback. It made sense. But I've seen some people say his ceiling is like Tony Romo, that his ceiling is like a Kirk Cousins type, or he's not going to be an MVP. He may have a couple of Pro Bowls, but he's not going to be an All-Pro. Like, he will be solid. He might as well be Andy Dalton 2.0, basically, is what he was scouted as. But in his second year with his former teammate, he's absolutely – I think he's surpassed those ceilings already.
Yeah, I think we should stop doubting Joe Burrow. Not that we are, but I just think he's one of those guys.
That man needs to slide every single time he crosses the dang line of scrimmage and not get like a concussion every time he tries to scramble for the ball. He's still got moments where he thinks he's in college, and like Justin Herbert kind of does the same thing too. But Justin Herbert's a big guy. But Joe Burrow is very surprising. And then lastly,
I just want to say one thing on Joe Burrow. I mean, he sat back after getting that injury and watched Justin Herbert just take all of his hype. And, Justin Herbert, he's a rookie there. He's the franchise guy. He should have gone number 1 overall. And Joe Burrow just had to sit there. I don't know if he watched it or whatever, but he heard it for sure. And he came back out there and, he's like, yeah, he's good. But it's like, I did deserve to be the number 1 overall pick. Like, I am good enough to be there. And I think that's another huge thing. I mean, not only that he made this second-year leap, but he did it coming off a pretty bad injury to have in your first year. So, yeah, there's a lot of things, to go with Joe Burrow, and he's having a great year. And if it wasn't for Dak Prescott, he might be the comeback player of the year in his second year, which that would be pretty crazy.
It would be. The fact that there could be a comeback player of the year battle towards the end of the year. But Jalen Hurts, I guess, is my last kind of surprise. Obviously, like, the Cardinals are somewhat of a surprise overall, but we knew that they were going to be good going in. But Jalen Hurts, I give him credit for going out there and putting out good performances and at least making this Philadelphia team competitive. I think, Philadelphia fans are some of the most toxic fans in the league. I've already said it. And, I don't even think they fully trust Jalen Hurts. It's like Philly fans and Dallas fans are almost complete opposites. Like, Dallas will hype up everything that they've got and think Tony Romo's an MVP. And then Eagles fans a year after winning the Super Bowl are going to be like, this is a terrible. I wish this team never existed. Like, so I'll give credit to Jalen Hurts because he's somewhat of an underrated scrambling quarterback thus far, but he definitely has somewhat of a ceiling for sure.
Yeah, he's an interesting case. He's the number 4 fantasy quarterback right now, which is surprising, but also like he could get benched and it'd be like, like he's doing all right, but his passing numbers just aren't where they want to be. But, this was a guy who people didn't know if he would even be able to. I mean, technically it was a competition with Joe Flacco. That probably wasn't really. But, yeah, I mean, the fact that he's anywhere near, starting caliber and certainly a great fantasy option. But, Gardner Minshew's waiting in the wings. Just wait, man. Give him that offense. And
I'm glad he got some passing attempts yesterday.
Yeah. But my final one, just real quick, I think the Raiders have now surprised us twice. They surprised us by being as good as they were at the start. But the bigger surprise, I think, is that they remain after the whole John Gruden stuff. I think that takes down a lot of teams. But they've, looked really good since then, maybe even better as they, except for some losses before that. So, tough battle for, those wild card spots in the AFC because there's a lot of like wild card level teams. But the Raiders doing what they're doing with an interim coach after kind of like going through all that is, kind of a huge testament to them. They're a really fun team. I think, a lot of guys you like to root for on that team. So, like to see what they're doing. But we can now move on into, we're skipping the MVP talk for a week because in honor of,
we need a buffer week.
Yeah. In honor of Halloween yesterday, I wanted to do a little trick play or treat, fun little thing, just, ranking our favorite trick plays, talking about what we like in terms of that, we'll play on that. And because we're kind of talking about the same guys every week with the MVP stuff. So, we can just go down from 1 to 5 and explain. I want to start with mine because this is my favorite play in all sports, and it's a jump pass. Made famous probably
I'm trying to think of what you mean by this, but
did you see what Derrick Henry did last week when he threw the touchdown?
Is it when they're like running the ball and then they do a little like whatever?
Yeah, it's like it was Tim Tebow really was like the big one when he was in college. You know, it looked like a QB power, and the tight end would like slip out to the back of the end zone, and they just jump up and like kind of loft it over a little bit. It's been done a few times. Derrick Henry kind of did it the other week. I don't know. I just like it. I think more teams should use it. I think that's one of the reasons why I like it. I like the ones that aren't used a lot, and it's like, you know, like use a jump pass. Come on, it's so fun. So I like that one.
Like give that in like Josh Allen's arsenal. I think
yeah, exactly.
Really beneficial. Just like big like almost like Cam Newton type players. I think.
Yeah, just fake the power and just because you can get that guy so wide open.
But yeah, it's solid. I actually did kind of rank mine.
Mine are ranked as well.
So number one, I mean, this is basically any trick play where the QB is the receiver, but I'm just going to call it the Philly because, you know, obviously I think the Philly is like one of my favorite plays ever.
The Philly special?
The Philly special, Philly.
Yeah, whatever.
One of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history
is
one of my favorite plays of all time because just the way that it came out of nowhere in the Super Bowl to give them such a great score.
Like,
but
Nick Foles calling for it on fourth down.
Just the fact that Doug Peterson is like, okay, let's see if we want to do this. And then Nick Foles says, do you want to do the Philly? And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Only thing I thought about that one, the only thing is it's been done a lot now. I have a lot of resistance because I remember Taj Boyd doing that at Clemson way before the Philly special. Now everybody calls it the Philly special. It's been around like way before. But yeah, I like how the quarterback fakes like he's doing some little audibles and then it just goes off. But yeah, that's obviously a good one. And certainly the most iconic trick play of all time.
Any version that the quarterback goes out for a route.
Like the reverses, all that, which, I mean, we saw.
There was a
Mike White caught one. Mike White did it.
I think so.
Yesterday. Mike White did it. Yeah.
Didn't Jamar Chase throw a pass too or something?
Cedric Wilson threw one. And
I had a player I had a receiver on one of my fantasy teams.
Tyler Boyd.
That was who it was.
Like 40-some yards.
I need you to catch it. Don't throw it.
Yeah. But no, that's certainly a good one and obviously the most iconic one. My next one, I don't think it's been done in the NFL, but it's a skip pass. I don't know if you're aware of that one.
What I'm thinking of would be a incomplete pass. So no, I don't know what a skip pass is.
I remember it
off the ground, but
I remember it from Skyline High School over in like Issaquah did it when they had Max Brown. But it's a screen pass that the quarterback goes backwards, but skips it off the ground, and the receiver acts like it's an incomplete pass, but it's a lateral, and then he just chucks it to like a wide open receiver down the field. Look it up after this. It's absolutely hilarious. Like that's the thing. It's complicated, but when it works, it's just like the fact that you just faked them. It's like a little more grown up version of the like. If you've seen like the Pee Wee football one where they go, oh, it's the wrong ball after they like snap it through the legs.
Yeah, little high tempo. Like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, that's not going to work at anything above like 11-year-olds. But this is like the closest version of that, of like tricking them into like forgetting the rules mid play. And
I could maybe see a skip pass working in college, but there's no way in hell an NFL team.
No, you'd have to like figure something like crazy out with that. But I don't know. That's a good one. But yeah, if it ever gets used in the NFL, I will lose my mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting trick. I've never heard of that before. That's weird.
A little thing with my list is I like the ones that are not used a bunch, which I think it gives them like some nuance,
Yeah. So number 2 for mine is not particularly unique in the trick play category, but any sort of fake field goal pass.
Yeah, that's not. There's a lot of different ones, but yeah.
Right. So there's a ton of different ways you could do it. Right, where you could have the holder bring the football down and then do like a turnaround and look for a receiver. My personal favorite is when the holder has it, but then the kicker will run behind him, and the holder just throws it behind him.
Is that the Michigan State one?
Yeah, that's the one that's the one that I like to tick people off in Madden. You know, I like that trick play a lot. You know, not quite as much as the Philly special, but any sort of fake field goal pass. I mean,
John Ryan with the scared look on his face.
That's what I'm saying. My favorite football game I've ever watched in my entire life has an awesome fake field goal pass that went for a touchdown in a game that they should not have done a fake field goal pass, but it worked.
Another one I like, this is on my list, but you made me think of it. I like the one where they just snap it like either to the kicker or the holder, and they just run straight up the middle. Like it's very rarely been done, but like you just kind of catch them sleeping. But
that's teasing into my next trick play. So what's number 3?
My number 3 is another one that I don't think's ever been done in the NFL, but there's a lot of different names for it. Secret ball carrier is kind of the general one. I know it used to be called hide the midget, but I don't think they called it that anymore. It's been done in college a lot. There was ones like McCluster Cluster, like Little People Big World, but basically I think WSU even tried to do it last year. It's when you go, it could be a kneel down or like a under center snap or whatever, and you hide this like tiny running back behind the guard or the tackle, and you just have them kind of standing there, and they like follow them up from the huddle, and you just like take the snap and you run the other way and just hand it off to this dude who kind of just sits there behind the line. Nobody knows he's there, and then he takes off. Like it's kind of like the fumble Rooski, which is a great one. I don't think that's been done in like 30 years. But I like the ones where you just completely fool them and make them look like idiots when it's done. And that to me is like, look up some videos of that one too. That's a funny one.
That almost like semi reminds me of like the Statue of Liberty plays.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Then hand it behind their back or whatever, right?
It's like you just take the snap, you hand it right next to this dude who's just sitting there in the hiding, and you just run out this way, and he just scurries around the other side wide open if it works. But I like that one.
Okay. You're kind of talking about it before so my number 3 is any sort of misdirection snap play, where not necessarily like a wildcat formation, but if you had like a quarterback and a running back sitting next to each other and it snaps directly to the running back, like I think like the Titans may have like a huge case for this type of play, to have a misdirection snap towards Derrick Henry. Like you have,
we can't use it anymore.
Right. But if you had Tannehill and Derrick Henry standing next to each other on the goal line, and you just do a snap right to Derrick Henry and he just catches it and goes, you're not stopping him.
Yeah. I mean, do you like,
because Tannehill would have to catch it and then hand it off, and that wastes half a second. But if you just snap it right to Derrick Henry and he goes, you're not stopping it.
Well, a lot of teams like to use like the wildcat in the goal line now, like Titans. I know the Pats like to do it. But do you like when the person who's supposed to be receiving the snap fakes like it's like way over their head? Do you like when they add that wrinkle in? Like they act like it's some wild snap. Like, have you seen it where the quarterback will then like act like the snaps like they're like reaching for it? Sometimes
where they'll like jump up to try to get it or whatever. I mean, sure. I guess I don't really get the point of it, because like I can see that like nobody watches a quarterback. Even if you do, like I can see the ball's not there. But another wrinkle of that is the punt snap to the up man, not back to the punter. And then they can either run it or pass it or whatever. So that's another version of that. My number 4 is also on your list, your number 5, but it's fake spike. That could be the fake spike pass or the Matthew Stafford. I remember when he did this to win the game. Fake spike, just dive over the line of scrimmage. I just like that because it's just like it's a in the moment, like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And you kind of just like all you need is a quarterback and the receiver to just be like, hey, let's do this, and you can catch them by surprise. So I really like that one. It's such like a high IQ play, but also like can't necessarily remember one, but it could really screw you over because if you like catch it in bounds or obviously intercepted, it could really mess. So it's very high risk, high reward play there. I think Dan Marino has probably the most famous one of all time. I think it was him. Well, I also remember Roethlisberger did it once to Antonio.
Yeah, he did it
Brown.
to. Yeah, I was thinking about that one too.
But yeah, like I have that at 5 for a fake spike because I think it's not done a whole lot, and I think some teams could benefit. Like I think Aaron Rodgers and Devontae.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
With how close that they are with chemistry, I'm surprised that they haven't tried it at least. Because I mean, if you can go up the field in 37 seconds, 40 seconds, or whatever against San Fran, and just give it to Devontae Adams and get up the field and kick a game-winning field goal, then you should be able to do a fake spike at least once. But it's a sneaky play that I think is very effective.
For sure.
If it's actually used, but
and I didn't even think about this one, but the one you've got on here, I like what you've got going on here.
So I think whenever I think of this play, I just think of Pat McAfee.
Really? I think of the Saints in the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, with the one against the Colts, correct? So, but surprise onside kicks, I think, are like the most like devious plays in football.
It's another one where it's like you just make the other team look stupid for like not paying attention.
And it has to be one of the most infuriating plays for the team that doesn't get the ball. But surprise onside kicks, they come in many forms, but the one that I remember most is Pat McAfee kicking a
little dribbler. That's the best one.
And he's just running next to it, crosses 10 yards and falls on it.
When the kicker recovers it himself, that's awesome.
Yeah, so surprise onside kicks are pretty underrated because, like you said, it could come out of nowhere to start halftime in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's gutsy. I am like a fake spike calling a little audible here because I originally had the pitch throwback, which is like the flea flicker. That's done to death, but the pitch throwback is kind of the newer version of the flea flicker, which I like. But I think I would, I would probably have to go with hook and ladder for number 5, which isn't done a lot. Obviously, you've got the like crazy laterally stuff at the end of the game. I like when teams kind of have like a plan for that. Like you see them kind of get some, but the hook and ladder, if you can pull that off, smooth, I think it looks so good. Obviously, Boise State did it in the Fiesta Bowl. But if you can not just like a bunch of laterals, but really get the defense going one way, just that nice little pitch back looks nice. Some teams do like a quick little one where they'll like do a 3-yard hitch to a slot receiver and have the running back like flaring out and try to get them going, because if you get them to pause and you get somebody with a head of steam, you can really get something nice out of there. So, I'll go hook and ladder for number 5 for me.
I mean, those kind of play hand in hand with any of the ones that like quarterbacks or receivers for me. Like, I think they could kind of work together at times. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could see more trick plays in the NFL. I mean, we are kind of seeing more trick plays. We are seeing more like quarterback.
There's some versions of them, yeah. I mean, I think
don't see a whole lot of fake punts or anything, or
I think what made me think of this is the Seahawks did a little pitch throwback yesterday with Alex Collins on the sweep and then throwing it back to Geno, and I was like, that's a smooth one.
Like the Saints playbook should just be all trick plays.
Yeah,
just
one that
piss teams off.
One that I didn't even think of that I like I want this play to work in Madden so badly, but it just sucks. It's the halfback pass, where you just do a little like pitch play and then he throws it, but that just play never works. But more trick plays in the NFL. Come on, what are we doing? But real quickly, and I mean really, really quickly, we can preview the Monday Night Football game with the Giants and the Chiefs. Giants at the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I know this was about 10 last week. Let me check what it is, but I mean, I don't see this going 10.5. I don't see this going anyway but the Chiefs, for all the issues they've had. They haven't lost a game to a bad team yet. They've lost games to contenders really. A team like the Giants, they'll beat, but the Giants could get some nice yardage and points in on that bad defense.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones will probably have somewhat of a decent game going up against a defense like this, right? Mm-hmm. So you know, good for Giants fans. They're actually going to probably see some scores
Yeah, I can
against
see it.
Kansas City, but
I could see a cover. I could see him keeping it a 1-score game, maybe with a late touchdown.
that's the thing. I don't see this being a double-digit game for Kansas
No,
City.
but I
mean,
don't see this being in question.
It's possible that Patrick Mahomes just goes back to his old self and they just have a good time, and Arrowhead's just a party. But
yeah, we've seen it against Philadelphia, against Washington. They don't really have a lot of trouble with these bad teams, and they kind of turn it on. So I expect it to be more similar to that than some of their other struggles.
But I'm going with a Kansas City win. If Kansas City loses, this is like full on almost panic mode for Kansas City.
Michael Scott in The Office when the fire alarm goes off.
Yeah. Like Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree.
Like even another Michael Scott moment, they might as well be yelling that they're filing for bankruptcy. Like at that point, if they're going to lose to the Giants at home.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the
Chiefs fans will riot probably.
Yeah.
So.
They keep dropping these games, but they're to the Titans and the Bills and the Ravens and stuff to where you go, okay. But if they, and there's still a lot of issues with them. But if they are to lose to the Giants, then I think we really have to reevaluate what this team is capable of this year. But until then, they are kind of, we're still just kind of waiting for them to right the ship. So we'll see when that is. We'll see how that goes tonight. All I know is I need Devontae Booker and Daniel Jones to not get negative points, and I win one of my fantasy matchups. I need them to get
negative 10. So
okay, well I don't need that. But that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for tuning in. We will be here again with you to preview the week, and then we're back to recapping it next week. But remember to tune in to us as well as the other Dash Sports properties to keep up with what we've got going around here. You can follow our socials, Dash Sports, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, as well as subscribe to Dash Sports on YouTube